Have you ever stopped to think if some of your everyday habits might be pushing people away, even if no one ever says it out loud? As we get older, we all settle into routines. Some are comforting and wise, but others can quietly become habits that don't serve us anymore. You might feel like you're just being yourself, but the truth is, people around you notice things. And even if they don't speak up, their behavior towards you might slowly change. In this video, we're going to talk about 12 habits that many people develop as they age, habits that might quietly affect your relationships, your self-image, and how others see you. We're not talking about physical appearance, but about behaviors that, over time, can chip away at the dignity and connection you've built throughout your life. But here's the good news. Most of these things are completely fixable. The first step is becoming aware. And once you are, a few simple changes can make a huge difference in how others respond to you, and more importantly, how you feel about yourself. So let's begin. One of the first things people start to notice, but rarely talk about, is when someone begins to let go of their personal hygiene. We're not talking about anything extreme here. It's the small signs, like wearing the same clothes for a few days, not brushing your hair, letting your nails grow too long, or carrying a faint odor without realizing it. To some, these things might feel minor, but they speak louder than you think. Hygiene isn't just about being clean. It's about how you show up in the world. When we're younger, keeping up with hygiene comes naturally. It's part of the routine. But as we get older and energy begins to drop or we stop going out as much, it's easy to let those routines slide. And once they do, it's a subtle shift, but people pick up on it. The thing is, your family and friends might not say anything. Not because they don't care, but because they don't want to hurt your feelings or make things awkward. So instead, they silently adjust. They sit a little further away. They cut visits short. They stop giving hugs as often. And the saddest part? It's not really you they're reacting to. It's what your self-care is communicating to them. Whether you realize it or not, letting go of hygiene can unintentionally send a message that you've given up a little, that maybe you don't value yourself as much as you used to. And unfortunately, that can lead others to pull back emotionally. But here's the truth. Taking care of your appearance isn't about vanity. You don't need to dress fancy or wear perfume every day. Something as simple as a clean shirt, neat hair, and tidy nails sends a powerful message. It says, I'm still here. I still care about myself. I still care about the people around me. And people respond to that energy. When you care for yourself, you invite others to care for you too. You encourage connection, warmth, and respect. And those are all things you deserve at any age. That brings us to the second behavior that often goes unnoticed, but deeply affects how others relate to us. As we grow older, many of us start to feel more comfortable saying whatever's on our mind. That little inner voice that used to whisper, maybe don't say that, starts to fade. And suddenly, you find yourself saying things more directly. Maybe even with a bit of pride, thinking, I've earned the right to speak my mind. But while that might feel freeing to you, it often makes the people around you uncomfortable. There's a very thin line between honesty and bluntness. And if you've ever noticed someone shifting in their seat, looking down, or avoiding eye contact after you've said something, it might be a sign that your words landed harder than you intended. Maybe you made remarks about someone's weight, their relationships, their children, or how they're raising them. Maybe you brushed it off with a laugh and said, back in my day, people weren't so sensitive. But here's the thing, honesty without compassion often just sounds like criticism. And most people won't say anything. They won't confront you. They'll just start pulling away. You might find that they stop inviting you to gatherings. Conversations get shorter. They love you, but they're trying to protect themselves from the sting of casual, hurtful comments. You don't have to censor every thought. And no one's asking you to tiptoe around people, but taking a moment to pause and ask yourself, is this kind? Is this helpful? Before you speak, that small habit can protect and even strengthen your relationships. A good rule? If you wouldn't say it to your grandchild, maybe don't say it to someone else either. The beauty of age is the wisdom you carry. But when that wisdom is shared with patience and kindness, people truly listen. When it's coated in sarcasm or judgment, they stop tuning in. Your words still have power, maybe more than ever. Use them to build connection, not create distance. Now, let's talk about something more visible, your clothing. It's time to look at the third habit. There's a certain comfort that comes with wearing the same clothes year after year. They're familiar. They hold memories. And hey, if they still technically fit, why not wear them? But here's something that often gets overlooked. Clothes say a lot more than we think. When we wear outfits that no longer fit right, pants that hang loose, shirts that cling too tightly, shoes that are worn out, we might not think much of it, but others do. Whether they say something or not, they notice, and over time it sends a quiet message. I've stopped paying attention. That's not about fashion. It's about presence. People feel something powerful when they see an older adult dressed neatly, in clothes that fit well and show some care. It doesn't matter if the style is trendy. What matters is that it fits your body now, not the way it was 20 years ago. That it reflects the person you are today, not who you used to be. It's not about being stylish or impressing anyone. It's about self-respect. Even something simple like switching to better-fitting jeans or choosing a color that complements your skin tone can change the way people interact with you. Not because of the clothes themselves, but because of the message. I still value myself. I still take pride in how I show up. You might not get compliments. People might not say a word, but they'll notice, and they'll respond with a little more warmth, a little more respect. Because deep down, they see someone who's still engaged with life, still showing up. Let's move on to number 4, a habit that affects how deeply we connect with others in conversation. As we age, we gather experiences, stories, lessons, things we've seen and overcome. So when someone brings up a topic we've dealt with before, it's only natural to want to share our take, give advice, or offer a story from our own life. But here's what often goes unnoticed. We don't always realize how much space we're taking up in a conversation. Maybe you find yourself jumping in as soon as someone speaks. Maybe you start talking and before you know it, 10 minutes have passed and no one else has said a word. You might think you're helping, but the person across from you might feel unheard. This habit rarely comes from a bad place. It usually stems from wanting to be helpful, to offer wisdom. But when one person dominates a discussion, the others slowly begin to pull back. They stop calling as often. They keep conversations short. They start to feel that talking with you means listening to you, not actually connecting. And they won't tell you that you're doing it. They'll just start disappearing. Younger adults, especially grandkids, can feel like they're not being taken seriously, like their voice doesn't matter. But here's a secret. One of the most powerful ways to connect is not by talking. It's by listening. Let there be pauses. Let others finish their thoughts. Ask questions more often than you give advice. And unless someone asks for your input, resist the urge to jump in with a solution. You'll be amazed how much people open up when they feel truly heard. And ironically, the less you try to control the conversation, the more people want to hear what you have to say. That brings us to another subtle habit that often slips into casual conversation without us realizing it. It usually starts as a passing thought. You see a teenager glued to their phone and think, back in my day, we had real conversations. Or someone under 40 makes a decision you don't agree with and you mutter, they just don't get it. These might seem like harmless thoughts, but when they start slipping into everyday conversations, especially around family, it sends a strong message. I don't respect your generation. The truth is, every generation thinks the one after them has it easier or is missing something. That's nothing new. But when this criticism becomes a regular habit, it doesn't make people see you as wise. It makes them feel judged, dismissed, misunderstood. Even if you mean it as a joke, younger people often hear it as rejection. And instead of opening up to you, they start keeping things on the surface. They stay polite but distant. Even when they love you, they protect themselves from your judgment by showing you less of who they really are. So what's the alternative? Replace criticism with curiosity. Instead of saying, these kids don't know anything, try asking, what's it like trying to make your way in today's world? You don't need to agree with every new idea. You just need to stay open. Because when people feel respected, even when you don't fully understand them, they listen, they come closer, and you become the kind of elder they admire, not avoid. Let's now take a look at a more modern behavior that can say a lot more about us than we realize. There's a kind of awareness that we don't notice until it's missing, like when someone talks loudly on their phone in a quiet room, or stands too close in line, or plays a video without headphones in a waiting area. You've probably seen it, or maybe, without realizing, done it yourself. These things might not have mattered much decades ago. Back then, people were more relaxed about little social behaviors. But times change, expectations shift, and what used to be normal might now come across as inconsiderate. The tough part? People won't call you out. They'll just give you a look, or quietly move away, or think to themselves, why don't they know better? They won't say it out loud, but the judgment is still there. And sadly, older adults often don't get the benefit of the doubt. When you break these small unspoken rules, people don't think, maybe they didn't know. They think, they just don't care. But here's the silver lining. It's one of the easiest habits to fix. Just start observing. Watch how others behave in public, how they manage their space, their volume, their use of phones and devices. Pay attention to little things like where you stop walking, how loudly you speak, and how your actions affect people around you. Modern etiquette isn't about being uptight. It's about being thoughtful. It tells the world that you're still tuned in, still paying attention, still considerate of the people around you. And that makes a bigger impact than you think. When your grandkids see you using headphones or stepping aside in a crowded hallway or lowering your voice on the phone, they don't just notice, they feel proud. Strangers feel more comfortable. Friends admire your awareness. It's a quiet kind of respect that builds without words. Because in a world that often moves too fast, someone who carries themselves with calm, respectful awareness, that person stands out. And that person can still be you. Let's now shift to a habit that often comes from a place of honesty, but can drain energy from those around us. We've all heard the joke. Put a few older folks together, and it quickly turns into a contest. Who has the worst back, the most pills, or the longest doctor's appointment? And while it might seem harmless, constantly talking about health issues can slowly drain the energy out of conversations. Let's be clear, there's nothing wrong with talking about your health. Aging brings real challenges, and it's completely valid to share your experiences. But when every conversation circles back to what hurts, what's not working, or what the doctor said, people start to feel like they're sitting in a waiting room, not catching up with someone they care about. Younger family members, in particular, often don't know how to respond. They might feel helpless or overwhelmed. And over time, instead of leaning in, they start to pull back. Not because they don't love you, but because it becomes too much. The visits get shorter, the phone calls less frequent, and a quiet emotional distance starts to grow. It's not about hiding your struggles. It's about balance. Share what's going on, but don't let it dominate every interaction. Talk about the things you still enjoy. Ask others how they're doing. Share a memory, a funny moment, or something you noticed that made you smile. People want to connect with you, not your symptoms. And when you share a more balanced view of your life, the tough parts and the joyful ones, you give them a reason to stay connected. Remember, being around someone who can laugh, reflect, and talk about more than just what's going wrong is a gift, especially in a world that already feels heavy. And when you're that kind of presence, someone who lifts the mood instead of weighing it down, you don't just feel better, you help everyone around you feel better too. Now let's look at something more internal. How holding on too tightly to our beliefs can impact the people around us. This is number 8. One of the hardest things to notice in ourselves is when our beliefs, once our guiding truths, start to become barriers. Ideas that used to help us make sense of the world can, over time, turn rigid. We may start saying things like, that's just how it is, or people are too sensitive these days, or even, I don't care what the science says, I know what's right. And while that kind of certainty might feel safe and familiar to the people around you, especially younger ones, it comes off differently. It feels like a refusal to understand, like you're closing the door on the possibility that the world has changed and is still changing. Technology, gender roles, mental health, the way we communicate, so much has evolved. And when we dig our heels in and refuse to even consider a new perspective, it doesn't look like wisdom. It looks like unwillingness. People notice this. They might not say it, but they'll label you internally as someone who won't get it, someone they can't open up to about certain things. And that creates emotional distance. But staying open doesn't mean giving up your values. It just means being willing to listen, to learn, and to let your understanding evolve. Sometimes being stubborn isn't about confidence. It's about fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear that letting go of old beliefs means losing control. But your relevance doesn't come from clinging to the past. It comes from how courageously you meet the present. The most admired older people aren't the ones who never change. They're the ones who keep growing, who stay curious, who listen first, then speak with grace. So next time someone shares an idea you don't understand, try saying, "I've never thought of it that way. Tell me more." It doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. And it shows the world you're still learning, still alive in every sense of the word. Let's shift from beliefs to something even more subtle, how we move through shared spaces. This brings us to point number 9. As we age, our pace naturally changes. We slow down. We're more careful. And that's okay. But what often goes unnoticed is how our movements impact the people around us. You've probably seen it, or maybe done it yourself without realizing. Standing in the middle of an aisle with your cart sideways, stopping suddenly in a busy walkway, drifting into someone's path while walking with a friend. Most of the time, it's innocent. You're focused on your task, not trying to bother anyone. But to others, especially in public spaces, it can feel frustrating. And here's the key. They won't say anything. They'll sigh, step around you, maybe give you a look, but they'll remember that moment. And if it keeps happening, they'll start avoiding those shared spaces with you. Not out of dislike, but because they feel like they have to manage you instead of enjoying time with you. This isn't about moving faster. It's about moving with awareness. You can slow down and still be considerate. Step aside in busy areas. Walk to one side. Be mindful of personal space. Pay attention to the flow of people in places like grocery stores, airports, sidewalks, or even hallways at church. When you show awareness, you show respect. And that sends a message that you're still present, still engaged with the world, not checked out. This kind of grace is quiet, but powerful. Strangers might not thank you for being considerate, but they'll feel it. Family will notice. And instead of quietly pulling away, they'll draw closer. Because you're not just showing that you move slower, you're showing that you still care. Next up, number 10. Something that often slips into our speech without us realizing it. Outdated jokes. Laughter is one of life's greatest gifts, and having a good sense of humor as you age is a beautiful thing. It lightens the mood, keeps conversations fun, and shows that you haven't lost your joy. But not all jokes grow gracefully with time. You might be joking the way you always have. Maybe it's a bit of sarcasm, a playful jab, or a comment based on an old stereotype. Maybe you tease someone about their looks, their job, or their background and follow it up with, "I'm just kidding," or "Lighten up, it's a joke." The problem is, what made people laugh 20 years ago doesn't always land the same today. Younger generations have grown up in a world that values inclusion and sensitivity to others' experiences. When a joke feels outdated or insensitive, they might smile politely, but inside, they're uncomfortable. They might even pull away, not because they dislike you, but because they feel they can't be themselves around you. You don't need to stop being funny. You don't need to walk on eggshells either. But it's important to ask, is this joke making someone feel smaller, or is it bringing us closer? The best kind of humor in older age is the kind that brings warmth, not tension, that shows you're not clinging to the past, but embracing the present. Humor that lifts people up, not tears them down. And nothing builds connection faster than being able to laugh at yourself. It shows humility. It says, I don't take myself too seriously. And when others see that, they relax. They open up. They feel safe around you. In today's world, being kind and funny is a superpower. And when you get it right, people don't just laugh. They remember how you made them feel. That brings us to number 11, which is all about how we present ourselves when we face new challenges. Getting older comes with real challenges. Things that once felt easy now take more effort. That's normal. And there's absolutely no shame in asking for help when you need it. But there's a fine line between needing help and relying on it out of habit. Even when you're still capable. Maybe you found yourself saying, "Can you just do it for me?" Or, "I don't know how this works. I'll just mess it up." It might feel easier in the moment, and loved ones might step in with a smile. But over time, they start feeling something else. Burnout, frustration, even resentment. When others feel like you can do something but won't even try, it shifts the dynamic. You go from being a partner in life to someone they have to manage, and that creates emotional distance, even if no one ever says it out loud. Often, this behavior isn't laziness. It's fear. Fear of failure. Fear of looking silly. But here's what people really admire. Effort. Your kids, grandkids, even your friends. They feel proud when they see you trying. Learning how to use a new phone. Carrying your own bag. Following a recipe without asking someone to do it for you. It shows you're still showing up, still growing, still trying. You don't have to prove anything. Just give your best. Ask for help when you need it. Not out of habit or fear. That balance builds trust. It shows that you're still strong, still independent where it matters, and still committed to being a full participant in your own life. Those small wins, doing the laundry, paying a bill online, learning something new, they build confidence. They remind you and everyone around you that age might change your pace, but not your power. And finally, let's talk about number 12, something many of us do without realizing the impact. Needing to always be right. You've lived through decades of change, challenge, and learning. You've earned your wisdom. So it makes sense that you might feel like you've got a good handle on how things should be done. But when the need to be right becomes more important than being connected, it pushes people away. It can show up in small ways. Correcting someone's story at the dinner table, dismissing someone else's opinion, saying things like, "Trust me, I know better." And at first, people might just nod or smile. But over time, they stop engaging. They stop opening up. They choose peace over participation. Most of the time, this need to be right isn't about arrogance. It's about safety. It's about holding on to a sense of control in a world that feels like it's moving too fast. But here's the twist. Real wisdom isn't about always having the last word. It's about knowing when to listen, when to let others explore their own views, and when to say, "That's an interesting way to look at it." People don't admire you because you win arguments. They admire you because you make space for their voices, their thoughts, and their journeys. And ironically, the more you let go of the need to prove yourself, the more people seek out your opinion, because your words feel calmer, kinder, and more genuine. At the end of the day, people may not remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. Now that we've walked through these 12 habits, take a quiet moment to reflect, not with judgment, but with compassion. Which of these habits feel familiar? Which one surprised you? And which ones you feel ready to gently shift? This isn't about shame. It's about awareness. Over time, little behaviors sneak into our lives. They're not signs of failure. They're just habits we haven't questioned in a while. And the strength to recognize them, that's the real sign of growth. Because aging well isn't about clinging to who you were. It's about showing up today with presence, awareness, and heart. About saying, "Yes, I've lived through a lot, but I'm still learning. I'm still becoming." So as you move forward, keep these points close, not as rules, but as reminders. Every kind word, every open conversation, every gentle act of self-care creates a ripple. It changes how people see you, and more importantly, how you experience yourself. Remember, it's never too late to grow, to adjust, to reconnect. Even the smallest shift in how you speak, listen, dress, or interact can make the world around you and within you feel brighter. Thank you for being here. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments one thing that stood out to you and how you plan to apply it. Your stories inspire us and each other. And if this video brought you value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Your support helps us keep creating content that encourages, informs, and uplifts. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.